Well, good
What do you
evening and
say?
welcome to Outlawed Live with I'm your host Dan Mayer along with Miles Krieger here tonight. We are your guest hosts here tonight for Outlaw Live as Ron is taking a hiatus here from his podcast. No, he'll be with us shortly.
Yeah, we kind of took over this deal, I think, right?
What's
Did
going
you
on here,
hijack
guys?
it?
What's happening?
We're living up to the name. We're Outlaws here, taking over your podcast.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. Thanks for doing that intro. I thought that'd be cool. But thank you guys for taking the time out here tonight. Give you a rest last week. We could have come in last week, but man, I tell you what, I picked up the Louisville flu down there last week. Man, I was feeling pretty rough, still hanging on a little bit, but I needed that day off last week. How are you guys feeling?
I'm doing all right. Actually, I didn't get the Louisville flu this year. I just ended up almost losing the voice there, hanging on there at the very end on Saturday. But we tried some different things this year to kind of get through it and try to figure out a way to make it through all 5 sessions without killing the voice there. And I think Miles and we had talked about doing the wave, and I think that really would have did me in. I think it did last year, but I think it really. I thought I could do it, but I don't think it would have happened.
Yeah.
So, Miles, how was your vocal cords this year on Saturday night?
I'll tell you, I made it through with flying colors. In truth, compared to last year, I want to give kudos some to the sound system, the sound technician, and some of those guys. I feel like just being able to speak a little bit more naturally helped a lot. And not trying so hard just to have to get over the noise through the microphone, which I think we were trying to do in the previous years. And then, my father for years and years and years, he was a believer of what he referred to as a steroid smoothie. And he would always go to the doctor about a week before farm show and have them give a steroid shot to him to try to get ready to combat the Louisville sicknesses and things that might occur. And I started a steroid pack. I really wasn't feeling well, truthfully. Saturday leading into Louisville, I told my wife, I said, I do not feel well. And so I actually started a steroid pack and took a steroid pack through farm show. And in truth, that was the easiest of the years that I've been able to be on the mic down there.
So maybe you'll be doing that from here on out. Then you're saying it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be sick on the Saturday before Louisville.
So what are you guys, your overall thoughts on the show this year? You think it went off better? Was there anything that could have been improved? I mean, it seemed like the crowd was definitely there.
I think this year, really, the overall scope of the show, I think went very well. I mean, if you take a look at, we've got numerous headlines we can talk about, that happened during the show. But as far as, like you say, the crowds and the overall competition, I mean, that has been the biggest thing over the years has been everybody's, oh, the early hooks win, the early hooks, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
and you've heard that, and it's like
Right.
this year it showed that, it didn't matter where you were,
Right.
it really, I think that showed. And, really, there's, I think just about every class put on a show that, really they well deserved, and they did a great job with it, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miles, your take?
I couldn't really agree or disagree with anything he said. I think the one thing that I have traditionally always believed about for Saturday night is as you're building towards your sort of crescendo and your peak with the pro stock class there at the end, the new format, I think, of moving the mods to the back kind of changed the format, from the perspective of maybe the fan, but I think it helped the track, to not have those mods run as the very first class.
Right.
And I think the super farm tractors, if you were to ask me truly, for Saturday night, I may tell you that was the most exciting class of the group, with I think it was like 3/16 of an inch separating third and fourth, and less than a full inch separating third to fifth. That was a really awesome class, and those guys did a phenomenal job of just coming out and throwing everything they had. And you had the very first hook sitting there kind of watching and waiting and watching and waiting and dodging. So it was that was a good class. And I think, from the perspective of changing that format on Saturday night, I got to give Mike and Danny and the guys that made that executive call. It's way easier just to run those mods, get them behind you, get the smoke tube hooked up after the 2-wheelers, and then kind of go. And this particular instance, they did change that format, and I think it helped.
Yeah, what was the super farm? I think it was. This sticks in my mind as kind of a memory, but I think it was Wednesday or Thursday night. The one that ended up winning, the Whoopie Maker, I think was the name of it.
Yeah, that's Casey's.
Did you see the video of that cover on the front of his tractor, lifting off, flipping over, and sliding right back into place? Was that crazy? I'd never seen anything like that before.
Talk about having some really good luck. You always talk about a good puller has a whole great strategy and a little bit of luck, and that was the luck for the draw that night.
Yeah, I thought it was photoshopped actually when I first saw I'm like, wait a minute, how'd they do? And then you got looking at it, it was like, oh, okay.
It's like a cartoon or something. It was like,
it was one of them things, but luckily it didn't come off because, like they said, they would have disqualified him. So, but
we've got some of our fans. Russ Dostal's a super fan. He's asking what from each of you was the wow factor? What stood out to you guys from this year's farm show?
I'll let you go first, Miles. You go first.
Okay. I think I probably give you 3 or 4. I think, you kind of expect Daryl Foles to do what he did. And that's unfortunate for his sake that's the expectation. But I will tell you that I think Thursday night, Julia Ray's pass and Friday night, Rhett Parrish's pass were both pretty big wow moments, especially Red Tractor at the back of the class, kind of coming late. Doing what Rhett did. I think Jared and Bethany Nelson going 1-2 as a husband and wife for the first time in history in the 2-wheel drive class is a pretty neat accomplishment. I will tell you that I think Brandon Simon made 2 absolutely phenomenal, hooks with his tractor. I think Cameron Neves deserves a big shout out because I think his position there in the finals was warranted and sort of, you don't ever want to say a long time coming, but Cameron did say that, so I feel comfortable being able to say something like that. Those were all pretty big wow moments. I think like from the tug on your heartstrings sort of moment, Tim Kaine welcoming back Bill Voorhees, that was a pretty neat deal as well. So those for sure. And then, I think each of those particular classes has something unique that they bring to Louisville. The light pro class was really good on Saturday afternoon and incredibly competitive as well. So I think that class as a whole deserves that sort of highlight moment. And then obviously the duel of fuels and a diesel coming out there and Colin winning. Those, if I had to give you 10, I'll keep going, but I probably just gave you 7.
You just used up half of my wow moments there, Miles. I should have.
You should have gone first.
But you know what though? I'll add to it though. I'll add, Kevin Lindstrom in the limited pro class. Just the dominance that he showed, which is surprising because I believe this is his 3rd or 4th appearance here and never had won the finals. So that was pretty cool that, he came out, swept his heat, and then came out and won the finals. That was just in dominating fashion, really. I mean, you see that pass again, you're just like, wow, that was something. I'm going to lump together all the pro stock preliminaries. Miles had mentioned, each night, I mean, that whole bunch, that whole week, what we saw from the preliminary rounds were really great. I mean, you mentioned all the winners and, Friday night, the John Deere's getting, shut out of the winner's circle. Right. That, you never see that, and we'll add Ted Skelton with the, his truck there. He figured something out in Louisville. I mean, he's been, 2 wins here and he's been 3rd, 4th, 2nd. I mean, he's just, he's figured that place out and that's pretty impressive. And like you say, the duel with the fuels was really good. And then the light pro, we had that pull off with the Canadian and Kurt Afdahl and Kurt, back to back. And, like you say, that pro limited pro class, or the light pro, I should say, they are really starting to, they put on shows like that. They're going to have themselves a couple sessions here. Yeah. I would imagine in a couple of years. It's, it's inevitable. I mean, you put on a show like that and you're going to earn your way into another session, I would think.
And
The
that
depth and
is
the qualities there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is a great class. It hasn't taken hold out here west of the Mississippi as much as it has back where you guys are, but we're starting to see more tractors converting over to 540s to run that class. I love the class. I love the RPM, the tire speed. So yeah, I think it's definitely one to watch in the future. Got some folks checking in here. Danny Lambert watching from Royal, Virginia. Ryan Freeman down in Texas. Says Louisville is hands down amazing. What other shows do you guys announce during the year that rank among the top?
I'll let you go first.
All right, I'll go first on that one. I'd have to say during the summertime, I do quite a few shows. So, I mean, it's really hard to say like which one's your favorite. I would say like Hillsboro, Wisconsin's always up there. I love the show down in Benson, North Carolina. Earl and his group down there do a great job. Of course, the Simons up at Farley, Iowa. That's always a favorite. Bowling Green, Bowling Green's Bowling Green. That's it's for Miles and I, it's a lot of work. 5 sessions, go. And it's kind of like a Louisville during the summertime, but it's we have a lot of good help there too. We work with a couple other guys, and so I'd have to say those are up there with the rank among the top that do during the summer.
Miles?
I'm pretty lucky to get to go to Toma, and I'm pretty lucky to get to go to Chapel Hill, obviously. And those two hooks for me have been, I'd never been to Toma until I went up there in 2011 with Jared and Bethany Nelson. And I went there as a fan, and I was absolutely hooked. And so I have been really, really lucky to get to be a part of that show since 2014 and enjoy it tremendously. And Dan and I are going to get to work together in Chapel Hill, this summer. And kind of a hard deal because one of my all-time favorite pulls and a show that I would have been on the microphone for the 20th year this year is on top of Chapel Hill this year. For some reason, the schedule's aligned in Henry, Illinois, which is America's pull, falls on Chapel Hill. And so I had to kind of evaluate do I go back to 1987 and the first year I went to Chapel Hill with my old man and what it means to go to the Lions Super Bowl of the South, or do I go to America's Pull for my 20th year? And so that has been one of my all-time favorites, and certainly the hospitality and the sweetness of those folks passing out the O. Henry bars and giving everybody that kind of experience, and starting pulling at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and pull till about 11 and see the best that Pro Pulling League has to offer. Dan and I get to go do a pretty awesome show again here in about a month. We get to go right back to Freedom Hall, which is pretty cool. That Mac trailer event has become, I will tell you, 2 years ago, it was the most fun show that I got to do the whole year. We just had a ball and had a lot of fun, and kind of unique, pulling the opposite direction and some of those sorts of things. And then, I have been really, really lucky to get to go to awesome places and announce shows, and I'm hoping to get to do a few more this year. And go to a few other places and kind of add. So if we get to have this conversation in a year from now, I'll be able to tell you some others. I have told you, and I have told Kurt, there's no secret. I want to come your way and try to announce some events out there as well. And obviously, I got to fit that around the sheep show schedule, because we go showing sheep, and that's kind of our thing.
Well, we've got a news flash here, Miles, that just came over the ticker here. Can you see the screen there? Is this breaking news here?
Miles really, really wants to come to Rock Valley, but I don't think Miles is going to make it to Rock Valley this year. I think Rock Valley is actually on top of a Pro Pulling League event in Fairfield, Illinois. I think the way that those dates fall, which I could be wrong, but I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's the Fairfield, Jerseyville PPL side, I think.
I say Fairfield is the 12th. And
Yeah.
I think that's when Rock Valley falls this year. Am I right, Ron?
Yeah, I've got the schedule. Yeah, it's a week. Yeah, I know what you're talking about with the scheduling, pulls falling on top of other pulls from the scheduling side of it. Yeah, this year has been a headache with that. So, and Rock Valley falls on top of some other pulls. which we had to, Rock Valley is our biggest event, so it takes precedence over those events. So yeah, Rock Valley is July 12th and 13th. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's I got home. I told Kurt if I can make it, I'm coming. But I had already kind of committed myself to Mr. Mears and told him that I would be there, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited about getting to announce at Shy Diesel's event again. I did that for several years, and now I get a chance to do that one again. And then looking forward to helping my boss at promote an event this fall that I hope I get to come back on here and talk with you about a little bit later this spring and early summer, just to kind of let the fans know what's going to happen and kind of what we're going to do. So
yeah, that'd be cool. That'd definitely be cool. I've announced with you, Miles. It's been a few years ago. It was COVID year, if I remember right. We got to announce together. Haven't got the pleasure to announce with Dan yet, but I thought we were going to get to in Illinois this spring, but some politics took over there, and I'm not going to be on the announcing crew, but I want to get some of these remarks out here where people are chiming in here, guys.
So Ron, when are you going to set this all up for Miles and I to come out west there and work a show with you? And
scheduling, I think between the three of us would be pretty tough. But I mean, if we could make it happen, that would definitely be cool.
There's zero secret about it. Two of my all-time favorite people in this world are Tammy and Richard Morris, and I want to come and be out there with them some and hit some events. I was super lucky in 2006 and 2007 to get to do some events with Mr. Bennett, and ran with the Outlaws, and there's zero secret me saying that I got to cut my teeth when I really wasn't the announcer that I am today. I was really out there touring with the Outlaws, and I want to come back and get to experience some of those events when I can. And sadly enough, that might not be for 10 years. It might not be for 15 years till these kids of mine are able to go show some sheep and do some stuff with Dad, maybe at a tractor pull. But right now, we're pretty high on going sheep showing.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. You do that as a family. It's a family thing. You got to do it. Brandon Lee chiming in saying, Dan and Miles, you guys were great. The farm show is special. You guys help make it that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Good to see Brandon. There they are.
He's giving us the weather report from Harvard, Illinois. It's storming in Illinois. Well, I will tell you, in Kansas City, it was 75 today. It's going to be 19 at 7 o'clock in the morning. So Midwest weather, you got to love it. 55-degree swing there. Cole Lundahl, he's one of our super fans with the Outlaws. Says, I guess a special moment for him is Jamie Yonke making it as far as she did, being the first hook and surviving 9 of 12 tractors with the best in the country on her.
She proved herself, no doubt whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Like that was a fantastic shot, and she did get to experience that corner. She also got to experience the uncomfortable sort of, that bubble, life on the bubble.
Yeah.
That's difficult.
Yeah, it was like halfway through the class, it looked like she was going to survive, and then everybody found the road where it was at, and they all passed her up there. But a great rookie job for her.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Season.
We talked about, I think there was, what did we figure? There was almost 50 rookies this year that had never pulled in that particular class. You had Frank Keener, he pulled there before, but never in two-wheel drive, and so on and so forth. But I mean, true rookies, I think we had like 46 or 47.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they did awesome. I mean, they really, pulled really well. I mean, if you go down the list and look and see what everybody did, really everybody did a great job for first time there. And, it'll be interesting to see who makes it back next year.
Zach Howell. Big kudos to those guys on the committee. I think there was a whole lot of discussion when that initial list hit of why and how and who. And I don't think there was anybody in that show that didn't prove themselves or, didn't earn their right and show that they should have been there. And when there's 192 entries out of 400 applicants or more, Dan, you probably know better the number, but goodness, I don't envy their position. And I certainly envy the outcomes that they get because Mr. Bauer had the sled set pretty awesome most of the week. And I think Mike and Danny they just do a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about rookies performing. Okay, take like the light pro stock class. Hank Dirksen from Canada. How many people had never seen him before?
Right.
Here he comes out there and runs with Kurt Afdahl, makes a full pull, and like, hey, this guy's for real. I mean, we saw, undefeated. He never lost a pull all summer. I'm like, okay, well, what's he run with? What's the deal here? He showed it. Yeah, he's one tough customer right there. That was pretty neat.
I'd love to see more of the Canadians make it down this way. That like it was in the 80s and 90s. There were lots of Canadian pullers that came down and pulled with us. It seems like we've kind of lost that a little bit. Not as many come down this way. But Zach House does a great job on the mic as always. Dan and Miles.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
There was a question here I wanted to get to you guys. Trying to get the computer to work. It's not working for some reason. So
I'll say that feedback's awesome. And sometimes Dan and I receive criticism too. And I don't think either one of us are afraid to have that. But I think, the microscope in Louisville and the challenges that exist, you want to give everybody their personal experience in Louisville. There's 192 and you want to give everybody. And Dan and I are blessed to get to know a lot of these people that pull there. But there are some people we don't know that pull there. And so, we spent, I don't know exactly how many hours Dan had, but I can tell you that from the infancy of the day the list was posted to the day that I rolled into Louisville through Saturday afternoon, I probably had 40 hours of time spent researching and studying and making notations and just trying to be able to have something to say.
Yeah, I agree. It's about 2 months worth of nights working here, trying to figure out what people want to hear, a lot of people you don't even know. That's the big part. Is trying to research who's done what, where they've done it, and
right.
That's
do you
tough.
guys keep notes for things like that when you do your research? Do you have like a note card for each class there at Louisville for those pullers that you don't necessarily see all summer long in the organizations that you announce with?
I do. I keep notes on a certain puller, or pretty much all the pullers, just to keep as far as who's done what, because you get mixed up pretty quick when you start talking back and forth about something, and you might forget a little a hot topic that you wanted to talk about.
Sure.
And that's really what I just keep them on a sheet of paper and just kind of keep some hot topics, and that's what I usually do.
He's got a 60-year archive too, so his pulling reference site doesn't hurt one bit for us to be able to draw off of. And he usually knows when I am doing my research, because he usually gets a text message that says, hey, need to confirm something. And then he has to go back into his studies and come back and give me a little bit of information, but I think the one thing is, for Dave, when Dave came in, I think the internet was really kind of going. But for Dad and Harold, or Dad and Scott Douglas, honest to goodness, I don't know how you could have ever done it unless you just flat traveled the circuit and knew them, because without the internet and us being able to jump on your app and look at the Outlaw app and pull that data off and being able to, we had guys, I would say, I'm probably spitballing here, but I would bet there were probably 40 organizations, 35 organizations that were represented in the field this year.
Yeah.
And some of those organizations, they deserve to be highlighted. We should highlight them even more, probably. But goodness, it's you start Googling the tractor name and the driver just to see if you can figure out where they ran and dig a little bit. And then from there, once we get a little bit more notes from the driver themselves, we can kind of figure out their profession and that kind of deal. And then, awesome to get to meet and shake a hand in Broadbent and kind of put a name and a face together to know somebody too. So I think we're both blessed that we have the flexibility that we spend our days down there in Broadbent, kind of getting a chance to talk a little bit.
Now going back, I talking to your dad, he had said that he'd always use the book. He would always bring the book with him because that's really all he had to go off of. Now,
Yep.
when I say the book, it's all the applications for the pullers that get accepted, and the committee makes up a book with all the classes in there, so you know who's pulling. And they've done that for years and years and years. But like you say, that was really the only thing all them guys back then had to work off of, like you say, unless you worked with them on the circuits, which your dad did a lot of them, but there was a lot of guys that he didn't go see a lot either,
Yeah.
so that you look back on the old shows and it's like, he just must have done a lot of politicking and talking during the day. Cause
Yeah.
he definitely, when it came time to perform, he was right there, knew who they were and ready to go.
A lot of folks probably don't even realize the research that you have to do. I mean, especially a pool like the National Farm Machinery Show, bringing all these organizations together just to hit the highlights of, those organizations or those pullers that are pulling there. It is a lot of work. Kudos to you guys for getting all that done this year and putting on a great show. But Miles, I want to say to you about your dad, I think the only time I ever saw him speechless for a moment was, I think it was maybe it was Virginia. It was old TNT pull, and he was interviewing Chris Holdorf. You know how you didn't know what you were going to get with him. He was kind of like John Force,
Yep.
but he didn't always have the PG mouth about him. He called Ken Lamont a turd in front of your dad. Your dad, this look on his face, I can still see it today. You guys recall seeing that? You remember seeing that?
Oh yeah, I got the video of that. Yeah. Lamont will beat me, the turd. He said, "Yeah."
Dad was there. There were a few. I know that he, Holdorf was always a good interview. He was funny, and had no worries whatsoever. Had no filter and just went after it.
So Daniel is asking, what is your greatest memory of an event that you announced? Overall, any event.
I'd have to say there's two. I'd have to say the Don Masterson run at the farm show in 2019. And then the first time that I interviewed Mr. Bohr in Hillsboro, Wisconsin, back in, had to be 15 or so. Let's just say it wasn't PG. It was the first time that I had to take the microphone and pull it away. And he was on a roll. Let's put it that way. And yeah, we had to end that one pretty quick. That had to be the two memories that stick out the most for me as far as announcing goes. That was interesting.
I won't say my greatest one because the one that kind of has followed me around for the last 15 years is one that I don't like to repeat. But needless to say, 2003, my brother and my dad and I got to announce at Henry. That was my very first year on the mic at America's Pull. It was Jeremy's very first year on the mic. Jeremy and I had done a couple of events in 2002 for the ATPA at that time. But in 2003, we got to go there and we got to go to Brandenburg together. And so that was, that's one that I'll never forget it. Jeremy came home from his honeymoon pretty well, and we went straight to Henry that next week and had a blast and just kind of got to work together. And then, I think turning on the microphone for the first time ever in Louisville is something that I won't ever forget. But last year, 2023 Friday night was the first time I ever did the opening ceremonies, and it was also the first time I ever did it without my dad. And as I turned the microphone on, and well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Miles Krieger. Welcome to Freedom Hall. To tell you that, I immediately turned the microphone off from the opening ceremonies and buried my head in my sister's shoulder. And just, that was when the emotion kind of overcame me. And it was for multiple reasons. The first one, obviously I didn't have my dad anymore, but the second one was more of I'm here. I've been coming to that poll since I was a little baby. My hometown was Louisville. I mean, my dad and mom, I grew up 15 miles from Louisville. So for everybody else, it was a trip for the year. For me, it was a hometown pool. And I thought, man, how cool am I to have this as my hometown pool? All my friends are coming to my town and they're going to come hang out at my house and we're going to have a blast. And so to get to be on the mic and truly kind of hit that opening ceremonies last year on Friday night. And there's a photo that Cody Vanderholm had taken, I believe, that still to this day is probably one of the coolest photos I have. And it was just me loving on my sister. She was in the audience. My brother, my sister, and I, all three were just full of raw emotion and experiencing that. And so and then, obviously, first time on the microphone in Toma with Kenny Mack. That was a pretty awesome experience too.
Awesome. Kurt Van Beek, he's throwing this out there talking about Miles not being able to make it to Rock Valley, and he's throwing the invite out to Dan now.
Man, I'm replaced already, Mayor.
Well, I'm at the other poll that you're not at for the PPL. I'm in Jerseyville and you're in Fairfield, I think. So that that weekend unfortunately is taken. Sorry. Yeah.
I saw David Hunt's comment on there too. He's got a square body Chevy he's down there working on probably.
Probably. Good guy, though. Good guy, David Hunt. He pulls with us.
Hey, there's the guy. Welcome back to Louisville and welcome to the final, sir.
Yes, absolutely. In fine fashion. We should add that. Yep.
And they're gonna come run with us some, I think, this summer, Dan. So we'll get to see him a little bit.
Yeah, that's
he showed last year when he came up to Canton. They brought their A game with them, and I think a lot of the guys there at Canton were like, who are these guys? They came out there and boy, they showed very well. And the Outlaws have done that traditionally, wherever they show up, they're, can run with anybody. And that was the cool part about Cameron this year, having the issues that he did last year with the tractor. And then this year coming out and just, running as awesome as he did. That was, and then of course with Dad being sick, and it just, that worked out very well. So hopefully George is back home and, we, everything.
I think he is. He friended me on Facebook a couple of days ago.
I talked to Cameron on the Monday after, and his dad was not out yet. But they were thinking they were going to get to leave on Tuesday, and Cameron said he just carried the trophy in and set it down in the hospital room, and cool. We got to have a pretty good visit with his dad, so that was pretty neat.
Yeah, Cameron was pretty pumped. I was pretty pumped for him. Not running that combination all year. He runs it twice a year at Louisville and the Pullers Championship, and come in there and rip off a second place. I mean, Brandon Simon wasn't going to be denied. He had an awesome pull, like you said, both times. But for Cameron to go in there and steal that second place away was pretty cool. Pretty cool for that family and for the Outlaws in general. I think.
He didn't steal anything. He earned it. I mean, he really went in there and then, of course, qualified here for the Mac Trailers Winter Nationals. So that'll be interesting to run in the modifieds this year. So, yeah, that'll be.
Did he commit?
Cameron? Yes, he did. He said he was going to be there. Yep. So
awesome.
So we'll see. Hopefully, he can carry.
We're revealing a secret, I think, Dan.
Breaking news. I need that news flash to pop up on the screen. I need that graphic. Rusty Gospel.
And I see that comment right there. That was something I almost said. You don't necessarily know if you highlight that or not. But Ike was pretty pumped. And I will say, I've had some conversation after that. And I was probably a little critical of Ike for not backing out of it. But after further discussion and understanding, they do not have the option after a sled reset. So I think the thought process in Ike's mind was, I'm going to drive this thing until I can't anymore and not worry about whether or not I back out of it and they don't change the sled type of thing for a rookie. Now, whether or not that's the true thought process, I have not talked to Ike about that, but I do think that's something that was discussed.
That's right. Yeah. Because Claypools were they were the first puller.
Yeah.
So they were the test puller and that was it. And the interesting part about that, though, with the, we talk about, where you ran into the wall and everything. This year, the committee, they moved that wall up more. So really the track was only 240, to the sand pile. And then they put new, I think it was like 6 or 7 feet. They had to have like they wanted to have like a safety barrier between that and the main walls of Freedom Hall. So they moved them barriers up, up the track more. So they actually shortened the track a little bit this year.
Yeah, I think
So that was
253, 252 used to be kind of like in the sand pretty good. And this year our sand distances were like 245 and 246.
right. So they accomplished, but like you say, all that work they did on the wall and 2 trucks in, they were already, already
We had a
working
block
on it.
knocked over and one cracked.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
but,
I think somebody quoted him as saying he was going to drive it through the sand pile. So he literally
He
did
did.
what he was going to do.
he did. Yeah. Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Miles, one of your fans there, you talked about Tammy Morris.
I love her. I love her and Richard very much. They're good people, and they've always been welcoming to me. When you load up and you go to a brand new event in a brand new area where you don't know anybody, and you're announcing an event for people who you've never met before, I can tell you that Tammy and Richard and the Van Genderen family at that time, they were running Outlaws, and they were very, very quick to greet me and be sweet to me as well. So, it's awesome to have some folks and have a familiar face and somebody that you can turn to when you're that far away from home and you don't know anybody.
Yeah, the Morris trailer is always a good one to stop by after the pull's over too, because there's always.
I've been fed before. I was fed in Mexico, and I was out there with you, just for the honor flight event there in 2020. So,
Todd Vaughn, starting on time, a great PA announcer, makes or breaks the show for him. So.
I'll tell you, we have to start on time. We follow a pretty very, I guess, a very close kind of procedural deal, and you've obviously seen those. You kind of are aware of how everything flows, being somebody who comes and sings the anthem as well. But there are times where we figured out. I think by Friday we figured out, okay, we've got to stretch just a little bit here, and we've got to shorten just a little bit here, and we're going to be right on the money, because our hope is that we get that cue for the countdown video, and we hit that, ladies and gentlemen, Farm Credit Mid-America presents the most powerful pull on dirt, let's go type of thing, and we hit that at 6:59 and 59, and you hear some noise and we go pulling.
So you got to be ready. Got to be ready.
Tammy Morris. Oh, that's for me.
Yeah, you
there
did.
You go, Ron. You do a great
now,
job.
I will tell you, you and both of the young ladies. I mean, we had Miss Kentucky, and then the young lady from Western Kentucky who sang, and I think she sang the final 3 sessions, maybe.
She
Friday
did
night,
Friday,
Saturday
Saturday
night. But all 3 of you did a phenomenal job, and I will say, I think it helped us. Like, it's much more personal and much more, I guess, a better experience for me from the announcer side to have you down with us, as opposed to have you up in the roost where you were last year. I don't know what you're, from the perspective of the singer, if you had a different sort of experience, Ron, or not, but I certainly prefer having you down there with us.
I prefer it. He like being like he kind of like being like Elvis up there, in front of the flag and all that.
I prefer it down on the track. I think the sound was a little better down on the track as well. But yeah, I liked it down there better than up there and where they had it last year. So was that the first time they did that? Was last year?
Yes.
That's the only time I've ever experienced that.
It was something to do with the spotlights. They couldn't. They had the wrong spotlight or something, and it didn't work. So that's why they pulled an audible there. And this year they had the right spotlight on both sides, and they had it. Whoever the choreography there, they really had it down this year. They really really had everything good to go. And like you say, the sound engineer was excellent this year, and that. It made it nice so you could walk through the farm show and not have 30 people come up to you and say, "Hey, we couldn't hear you in so and so and so and so." And this year it was, "Hey, we can hear you." So that was a lot nicer.
Yeah, a couple of years ago that was the case when I was there. You could hear in certain parts, you could hear nothing. You could tell you were talking, but that was about it. But yeah, it sounded really good this year.
The sound technician came up to me on Wednesday night when the mods were running, and he said, "I just want you to know, if you're going to talk when them loud things are running, you're going to have to yell." And I said, "Then I just won't talk, buddy, because it's Wednesday night and I got to have a voice on Saturday night."
Yeah.
We're not doing
not going to happen. Nope.
As they're going down the track, no, we won't be doing that. Tim Skelton. Top moments.
Yeah, let's hear them.
I don't know. It was pretty cool the first time I took the mic from Dave Bennett when Dave Bennett was retiring from the Outlaws. He kind of wanted to put his seal of approval on who was replacing him. And I think the deal was pretty much already done. I had announced a little bit with him, and then we went to a pull in Mound City, Kansas. And I was supposed to announce with him. And like just a few minutes before starting the show, he said, I'm going to do the opening ceremonies. I'm going to hand you the mic. I'm going to go sit down and listen. It's your show. So, that was my first full gig alone with the Outlaws. And of course, announcing with Dave and Fred at Rock Valley. I tease Fred. We tease him and call him, tell him he's a legend and like it's an age thing. But no, I mean, he's a really great announcer. But those are probably my top things in announcing, my high points there.
Tell you, Mr. Bennett getting a chance to, I will never pick on him ever, but traveling out there for the very first time and rolling in to Diamond, Missouri. And you just have to understand, like, please don't ever think I'm judging, but the very first event that I came to that was an Outlaw event was in Diamond, Missouri. Okay. And when we got there a day and a half before the show. And I kid you not, we rolled into the middle of a field and there was nothing. There wasn't a pulling track. There were no bleachers. There were no lights, nothing. And within 12 hours, Doug Roberts and this whole group had flatbed trailers, and they had bleachers hauled in, and they stacked a set of bleachers in front of the flatbed trailer. And on top of the flatbed trailer, they had light plants everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And then, I meet Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett keys up the mic and immediately starts tearing into his mother-in-law and telling all these jokes about his mother-in-law. And I came from Army Armstrong and my dad and people out here, and guys like Harold Walliser. And, Harold was quick-witted and would tell a joke like crazy. But I'd never had heard him tear into his mother-in-law or anything like that. So I got to tell you, my first official experience and just kind of getting to go to an Outlaw event, I remember calling Dad as we left Diamond, and we left Diamond that night and drove all the way back to Indiana. And I remember calling Dad and telling him, like, Dad, I don't know how to really reflect on it.
He broke. He kind of went away from the mother-in-law jokes for a long time there, and then last summer, he came back to Rock Valley for their 20th anniversary pool. They brought back Dave and Fred and myself were there, and he told a couple mother-in-law jokes. He threw them in there. So for old time's sake, last year at Rock Valley.
Yeah, he's got a stack of them.
Doug Meisinger says it's when it's really nice to have a group of announcers at large events that know the people from that area. Amen. Or announcers that do their research for sure. Tammy Morris says, congratulations to David Hunt with his two-wheel drive truck and making the finals. I'll second that. Congratulations. Jeff, is that Stiff? Miles, come to Brandenburg, Kentucky and announce.
Yeah, Jeremy will be there, Jeff. That's a sheep show weekend. And so I made the executive decision about 6 years ago to go to Fort Recovery. When my dad retired, I was blessed to get asked to go to Fort, and I did that show for 3 years. And the last 2 years, this beautiful girl that's sitting right over here next to me, she was showing sheep. And so I drove from the sheep show to the tractor pull, announced the tractor pull, drove through the night back to the sheep show, watched her show all day on Saturday, drove back to the tractor pull. And by the time I got to Fort Recovery on Saturday night, I was a zombie, and I was really not a very good announcer at all. And I just so happened to be, the year prior, I'd done the kind of memorial for Larry and losing Larry Kester. And so the next year I got there and I realized, like, I've just overextended myself far too much. And it just so happened I got to talk to Greg Randall at Louisville last year, and he said, hey, I think we're going to, potentially do something here. And I said, you let somebody do something, we're going to go to the Youth Sheep Expo and show sheep again. So I will not be at Brandenburg. That is always going to be, that's going to be a family weekend as we either go showing or we prep for the Indiana State Fair, which is about 10 straight days of Indianapolis showing.
Is she your secret weapon there, Miles, keeping you in check, telling you what to say over there?
She's keeping me in line, and you know, she's cool in the sense that she'll go pulling with Dad, and she doesn't mind to go, and she would like to go more, I think, probably, but we just haven't worked that out entirely because Dad goes and spends more days away than she probably needs to right now. But as we get to where she's a little bit older, I hope that we can, and we're getting ready to experience some exciting stuff here in terms of showing sheep and a little girl that wants to play softball and a little boy that's playing soccer, and so we may go in several directions here in the coming years.
For sure. So now, Miles, I think we have a pretty good idea how you got into pulling. You can tell your story, but Dan,
Sure.
how did you get into pulling? How did you get hooked?
Well, actually, I've been following pulling for, oh boy, it had to be, I would say 1983, 84-ish. Went
You're
to
old.
yeah, I'm old. Um,
Don't
went
ask.
to the, I was, well, I would have been 8 or 9 years old, 7, 8, something like that. So I'm not that old, but went to pulls at the Niagara Falls Convention Center back in when I was up in Western New York. And that was the first time that saw, tractor pulls and truck pulls. And it was like, this is really cool. And as we went to those events, every year, I remember, well, it was Dave Grimm was the announcer there.
Yeah.
And he would always, Bruce Hutcherson would come out and, hey, you could see this tractor this summer with 5 engines on it. Like, what? Come on, what? And so that, we'd go to Hamburg, we go to Syracuse, Cayuga, Canada, and just within where we lived, within a 2-hour radius, there was, 4 or 5 Grand National pulls back in the mid 80s, which was, and then they pulled it, the Bills Stadium, so there was a lot of pulls going on. So I was able, I followed that. And
I was going to say, at least there was something cool going on at the Bills Stadium,
Oh, man.
That's a zinger.
Wow. I don't know how I can, this coming from Kansas City. See, I gotta. I haven't told you the stories about when I flew into Kansas City to do the pull in Wheatland. I would make sure that every year that I went there, I always had a Bills shirt on. And they, like the shuttle driver, the one year from the parking lot to the airport wouldn't let me on the shuttle until like you got to take that. It was hilarious. I mean, for 4 or 5 years, it was just the whole airport, and I would have a great time with that. But no, going back to so we'd always go to the polls and watch them. My dad, my uncle, and my cousin and I, we'd all go to the polls, and I was also into dirt racing. I was pretty big into that in Western New York, and then eventually started racing dirt cars and did that for a couple of years until my oldest boy was 2, and then it got to the point where I'm out in the garage and he's in the house wanting Dad, and it's like, okay, I can do this later on in life. So that was 2004 was the last year that I raced cars. And so 2005, my wife says, you got to find a hobby. You're driving me crazy. So that was 2005. So 2006, I got a hold of the local tractor pull club, the Empire State Pullers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at the time, their announcer, he's been around a long time, and, kind of needed some new blood. And I just kind of said, I could probably do this. So I went to the president at the time, was Henry Everman. And he said, yeah, we'll give you a shot, So I did that 06 that summer there. And that's when I met Miles at the notorious pull up in Canada there with the helicopter. And it just kind of went from there, and just went from Western New York to doing some pulls in Eastern New York, and then down Pennsylvania, and then John and Christy heard me somewhere and asked if I do this pull, and it just kind of went from there, and that's how I got in the tractor pulling announcing.
Rest is history, huh?
Yeah.
And then Miles, I'm assuming you probably tractor pulling was just the norm for you as you were growing up, right?
Yeah. So I would tell you that, I traveled a lot. I mean, I almost was born at a tractor pull in Memphis. My mom ended up going to the hospital and staying overnight, and I almost came in Memphis, Tennessee. But needless to say, I was born a couple of months before the farm show, about 4 months before the farm show, and so farm show of '81 would have been my first three, and our first year there, and Louisville, and I've been there every year since pretty well. But following Dad, and just obviously, I was really lucky, because the guys that I Army Armstrong used to come to lunch with me at my elementary school. Um, and Harold Walliser, I loved Harold Walliser. He was my grandfather. I didn't, I sadly, I lost both of my grandfathers before I was 10 years old. And so I used to call Harold and Betty grandma and grandpa. And when I was 15 and 16, I went to Ohio and spent 2 weeks with them in the summers for the Buckeye Challenge. And we would sweep from Ohio State Fair up to, to Bowling Green, and I would work the T-shirt booth with Betty, and hotel to house to hotel to house, or wherever we were going at that particular time. So, I had I was lucky because I didn't think it was any different that the guy that was on the television with TNN came and had lunch with me, or that I was sitting right next to Harold Walliser when I rode the very first roller coaster that ever flipped at Cedar Point. My very first time ever on a roller coaster, he was holding my belly as I went went through the flip. So I have such fond memories of my time as a child in this sport, and I know the friendships that I have, the people that are still actively involved in my life today, who I was so close with at age 2, 3. I mean, Ashley Corzine and I constantly are joking about the fact that, I used to throw her off the mountain when we were playing in the pit area, and whatever we were doing. But she and I have just been just lifelong friends. And so, my dad took me, and my sister's 7 years older than me. My brother's 5 years older than me. So, as we got into where I was a teenager, my siblings were college age, so it was a lot of just me and Dad. Just he and I hitting the road, and 1 o'clock in the morning, truck stops to grab something to snack on as we drove across from the next one. And I always joked that my mother attended the most tractor pulls of anybody in the history of the world without ever watching a tractor go down the track. She'd go to Target on Thursday and buy every, magazine she could, from People to Us Weekly to whatever else she could find. And then she'd sit in Dad's van and read magazines for 6 hours on Friday night. And if she read them all, then she went and bought more on Saturday morning and read them all Saturday night. And she'd get in the car and say, "Hey, you sounded good, Butch," and we were gone. So, that was kind of what I knew. And I grew up in the city. So, livestock and all that kind of stuff was nothing that I ever dreamed about. And I chose not to participate in travel ball and things like that because I flat wanted to go pulling. So, I ran cross country, and the roads are always open and the parks are always open, and wherever I wanted to run, I could. So if we were in Macon, Missouri, I was on the road. And if we were in Owensboro, Kentucky, I won a road race in Owensboro, and I won one in Henry, and I won one in Macon, and they were 3 consecutive weekends. And the next weekend we were going somewhere else, and just keep running as much as you can. So that's what we did.
Yeah, I say that regularly and mean it, that when I was a kid, if I'd had the choice of going to Disney World or going to the local tractor pull, I'd have picked the tractor pull every single time. I mean, I was, my dad got me into it when I was very little, and it just grew up. I grew up, that was just part of my life, and I loved it, like you guys, just was hooked from an early age.
I learned some bad habits, I'm telling you, thinking that I need to eat snacks at midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. So now every time I get done with a pull, I got to go somewhere and get something to eat. That's the one thing I've been trying to diet. My wife told me when I got to Louisville, she said, "Whatever you do, you get done with the show and don't start eating again, because you're doing a good job." So that was one of the things I had to really hone in on was my need to go
That's
have
tough.
pizza.
That's tough. Yeah.
Gary Jansen says, "Pick a show and you all three swap and just do it." Well, maybe one of these days, Gary, we'll get the opportunity. I thought we was going to get it sooner rather than later, but we may have to wait another year, so I'm not sure. But that would be cool to announce with you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Jamie Yankee is sending out a thank you to you, Miles. So you came up and introduced yourself to them, and she said it meant a lot to her. She always dreamed of competing there and had heard your voice there in Freedom Hall. So,
Well, I try. I mean, I will be honest with you. There are some that I miss, but even the person that it's not my responsibility. There's nothing in my contract that says that I'm part of the greeting committee. But I can tell you that once those folks are standing in a line down there at Freedom Hall, I go give them all a fist bump if I can, or a handshake, and tell them good luck and thanks for coming, because this isn't something Dan and I just, it's not just another pull, and it's also not just something for us. I mean, announcing tractor pulling is something we don't take lightly. I know you don't take it lightly either. There are thousands of people that think they can talk beautifully and grab a microphone and tell a story about a tractor pull, or have some understanding of technology and engineering, and go crazy about all the smoke that's coming and that sort of stuff. But being able to have a connection with the people is really kind of something I think my dad prided himself on, and it's most certainly something I'm going to pride myself on. I'm never going to be able to explain all the engineering. That just doesn't flow through my mind. But I can tell you grandkids' names, and I can tell you what they're doing, and I can tell you about their, about who they are and what kind of people they are, and that's my goal always. So I appreciate that, Jamie, and certainly I hope that, Dan, myself, Leslie, all try to help people understand that when you come, we want you to be comfortable. We're likely going to put a microphone in your face if we can, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure your Louisville experience is exactly what it should be.
We try to warn them in the driver's meeting. That's we've been trying last couple of years, been trying to do that, but there we go.
Yep, breaking news. Here it is again. Cameron Neves, no secret, they will be at the truck show, and George will be on the floor with him.
Good.
He needs to be. He didn't get to see a single tractor go down the track.
Absolutely, yeah. Got to have his crew chief there.
That's right. Calvin Miller says, you guys did an awesome job. Couldn't make the pull due to fighting cancer. So you guys made a guy feel good sitting in the hospital on the Wednesday night show being put on the big screen. Thanks a bunch, guys, from Calvin Miller.
That was awesome. We're praying for you, sir. Keep fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. Miss
Leslie,
you at the polls.
Leslie had a FaceTime call.
Yeah.
Brandon Gilliland is sending a shout out there. Let's see. William Joseph Wilkinson. Dan Mayer, I always look forward to you on the microphone. Will you guys be in Louisville for the truck show? And the answer is
yes, we'll be there.
Yes.
We'll be there.
Kevin Davis, he's one of our promoters at Wayne, Nebraska Pool, Wayne County Fair. You guys all do a great job announcing. And Taylor Van Beek saying great podcast. Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it. Now, and Brent Shorfeide out of Illinois saying great, very good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Now, Dan, you're like the historian. I mean, we're running a little bit long here, but I wanted to quiz you just a little bit. Start off relatively easy, but it's going to get harder. So
no pressure. Here we go.
No
pressure.
Cue up the music.
Pressure.
Oh,
speaking of which, pulling reference, we'll be coming back. My son has kind of put this thing into high gear, so we're working on this. So
both of our websites are going to be back up and running.
Yes,
this year.
Yes, before pulling season, you will see. Yes, back up and yes.
I got a new website being built too.
Yep.
Okay. What is it, Miles? Go ahead and plug it here.
milesbeyond300.com. It's coming back up. So sadly enough, I lost everything. Over 1,000 posts from 2012 to 2022, and my site was hacked, and GoDaddy could not get it back, and I have none of my archives really. So pretty devastating.
Wow. Man, sorry to hear that. I didn't know that. That's insane.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Oh, I had a sweatshirt of that truck.
I got it on a T-shirt too. Johnson Brothers out of Oklahoma City,
Oklahoma Showdown.
Yep.
Can you guess where this is at? That's a little bit harder, I guess.
Oh boy.
Oh goodness.
I see Huffin in the back.
Yeah. It is in the state of Ohio.
I see Joe Smullock back there.
Yeah.
With the Super Ford, and then that looks like Huffin 3, I believe it is.
That might be. You're right.
Good
eye, Dan Mayer.
Where that is, boy.
Take a guess at it. Late 80s.
Could be Bowling Green.
No. I took the picture. I think it's Fort Recovery.
I was going to say that looks like Fort.
with
Yeah.
that, with that building over there.
The light poles in that building look like Fort Recovery to me.
Yeah, I went to the Ohio State Fair that summer in Fort Recovery. I think that's Fort Recovery.
Yeah,
And of course,
that
that
doesn't look
truck
like
is
Columbus.
back on the track, guys. Did you know that?
Yes, it made its way up through New York, and then made it outlaw territory.
Yep. Derek Brown is driving it now, and it's getting it tuned in. He had some really good hooks at the end of the season with it. So, and they're getting it all painted up now and getting it wrapped. So it's gonna be out.
I need to get Eddie Holland to do one of those right there, Dan.
Yeah, Mike and Scott Johnson, very good pullers.
All right, just one more here for you, Dan. Now, I might stump you here.
All
We're going to go back to the early 70s, so early to mid 70s here.
Oh boy, we're not. Oh boy,
look at the flames on it. The flames might tell the story.
I get out of jail free. I wasn't born until 80.
I'm a 75 model. The flames might tell the story. Diekman?
I will tell you, he had a twin-engine tractor. He had a Corvette two-wheel drive, a funny car two-wheel drive. I think he even got into the monster truck game at one point.
Oh, Dan Patrick.
Dan Patrick. Yeah,
That's got to be Dan Patrick.
Say Floyd didn't have a Corvette; he had a Porsche.
Yeah, I think he always had those flames on everything he had, if I remember right.
That was Samson, right? The monster truck.
Monster truck. Yeah, he had.
King Crazy was the two-wheel drive he had.
The funny car. Well, he had the Warlord. Remember the
the Warlord.
Everybody had the toy when we were kids.
Okay.
Yep. The Warlord, and then he was what was his twin? He had
was it King Crazy? Something was King Crazy.
King Crazy was a funny car before it was Warlord. Because Play School, when they made the toy, they wanted a different name on there, so that's why he came up with the Warlord. But
so Fukerberg checking in.
Showtime, maybe Showboat. Showboat was his modified with two engines on it.
Yeah. That picture was taken, I think, about 74 in Southern Ohio, a little track where I grew up, Taze Valley. Track for my time. So there were some big names used to come down there to that little pool, you know.
Yeah, I always enjoy the pictures you post from there. Those are pretty cool.
Well, guys, I mean, we've run long here. The three of us together, we could probably talk till midnight and still not run out of stories here. But I appreciate you guys taking the time out. I did send an invite out to Leslie. I didn't hear back from her. Was trying to get her on here as well. But I appreciate you guys taking the time out this evening here for the Outlaw fans. And we have fans all over the country as well. You saw some people checking in from Virginia and different places. But good to hear the men behind the Farm Machinery Show here on Outlawed Live tonight. And thank you guys very much for taking the time out.
Thanks for having us. You know, it's always great to talk with you, Ron, and good to see you at the farm show. And hopefully we'll cross paths somewhere here down the road.
Yeah.
And
Brandon,
we got to put that down in paper. Yeah. We got to do a show here. One of these.
That would be cool. That'd be cool.
I say this multiple times a year, I feel like, but you know, the thing I love the most about this sport is the fact that everybody's got a chance to go pulling. Yeah. And I think announcers have that same sort of scenario. You know, Dan and I are incredibly lucky that we get to do the events that we do. I think that, obviously you get to do the events that you do. And because of that, I think we're all pretty blessed in that sense. Yeah. But there's plenty of events out there and there's plenty of places to go pulling. And if there's a guy that has a dream about being an announcer or a young lady who has a dream about being an announcer, there's no reason you can't.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I will tell you as well, I've learned a whole lot in terms of listening to my peers and listening to other announcers. That's usually where I learn the most. So I view you, Ron, and Mr. Bennett and everybody that I've ever had a chance to work with and learn from as somebody who can teach me something. And I think in the game of pulling, that's the same scenario is I love the fact that you can go pulling in Texas and you can go pulling in Illinois and you can go pulling in Michigan and you can go wherever you want. Yeah. And most of the time the rules are very similar and you can be competitive and you can go win. And I think you guys do a phenomenal job with the events that you do. And I have events that you get to announce that are on my bucket list, probably the same way that you have events that I get to announce that are on your bucket list.
So,
I don't know that I'll ever give up a few of them, but yeah, until I'm told I have to go, I'm going to keep trying to do the ones I get to do.
Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on. Phenomenal show tonight. Good luck next month at the Mack Trailer. The Mack Trailer Nationals there.
Winter Nationals. Yeah, the Mack Trailer Winter Nationals. And actually, I think Chase is supposed to divulge the list tomorrow. So we have to,
okay.
We can't.
And the dates of that event, you want to go ahead and plug it?
March 23rd.
23rd.
March 23rd. Yeah.
Start early too. Like I think that show starts around 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, I believe. Yes.
Tickets are on sale now.
Tickets are on sale. Yep.
Awesome. Mack Trailer
Ticketmaster, I think, right?
Yeah, Mack Trailer Winter Nationals.
International. All right. Dan, Miles, thank you guys so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys down the road.
All right. Sounds good, Ron. We'll see you somewhere.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Awesome show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. The voices behind the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville, Kentucky, Miles Krieger and Dan Mayer on the show tonight. Wow, that hour went really fast. When you get some announcers together, you guys could sure talk for sure. And great stories, some great history behind the two men, the voices of the National Farm Machinery Show. Appreciate Dan Mayer and Miles Krieger for coming on. Join us next week, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central, for another edition of Outlawed Live with Ron Stone. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Supercharged big block Chevrolet's cotton candy. In the point standings right now, calls it high cotton.